So this is a 2005 Yamaha Raptor 350. And if you guys remember the last video on this machine, we picked this thing up for 500 bucks and the seller stated it did not have spark and would not run. So we got this thing back home, started diagnosing it, and went through the whole machine. And sure enough, it did not have spark. So we actually replaced the stator last video and we got spark, but this thing would not fire. So we checked the valves, the carburetor, timing, everything is spot on, and it still would not fire up. I know we're getting gas, I know we're getting spark, and I know that the compression is good. So it's really weird that wouldn't fire. So last video we kind of ended where we were testing out the stator, kind of ohming it out, and we found that the stator ohmed out correctly because it matched the other stator. So that kind of left the CDI. So we went ahead and bought a cheap CDI off of Amazon. Supposedly it works for a Raptor 350. We're going to plug it in and find out right now. So here it is. We got a new gasket for the stator side and the new CDI. Well, let's see what happens, I guess. It had good reviews, so we'll see. But my guess is that it is sparking at the wrong time due to the CDI. So we saw that we have spark, but it was probably sparking at the wrong time, causing it not to run, because it would backfire every once in a while, but wouldn't start up. So hopefully the new CDI fixes our problem. Let's open that up, get this thing installed, and we'll see what happens here. All right, let's open this up. It's Devmo CDI. It's like 30 bucks. New OEM ones are like 400. So we'll see if the cheap one works. Alright. Hopefully that's the same type here. We'll find out here. Got our jumper pack hooked up. Take that off. And one thing this was doing that's really weird is you would turn the key on and it would just spark on the plug without rotating the engine over. And then you would turn it off and it would spark again. So I think that's kind of a telltale sign that the CDI is going on it. Alright, here's the CDI that was on there. Let's see if this thing matches up properly. It looks like it might. Alright. Let's see, we'll plug it in and we'll find out. Alright, let's go down to the spark plug, see if we're getting spark. I'm pretty sure I fried the one-way bearing last video too, cranking this thing over so many times. So we'll see if it's fried. We might have another one in my box of parts here. Let me see. Maybe not. Alright, let's see if we get anything. So we're going to turn the key. If we see spark right away, that means it's probably not good. Oh, shoot. See that? Sparked again. Well, that's not great. Let's try to rotate this thing over. We're getting spark. Alright, let's install the plug and just see what happens. I don't know if it's going to spin fast enough to even start this thing. It sounds like the one-way bearing's pretty much gone. But we do have spark with the new CDI, so we'll see. Worth a shot. Alright. Turn this thing on. We'll attempt to fire it up. Alright, what do you guys think? Gas in it. Alright, it's getting gas. Go. Turn it on. Choke it. Just click it now. Bad ground somewhere. Could right to the end from here. All right, didn't go. I think the starter gave out though. So we're getting power to the solenoid on both pegs, but it's just clicking. So I think that starter needs to come apart. It sounds really weak. The starter's right in here. Yeah, it's pretty hot. Let's get that out. One-way bearing or the starter. Oh, shoot. Well, we just ripped the whole attachment off here because that nut is so on there. I think we like welded it to it. All right, now we can get the starter off at least. The starter is toast. All right, there's the starter. And you can see this nut did not want to come off. So that's fun. Let's open the starter up, see what's going on. Ooh, I can smell it. Yeah, it does not smell good. That piece goes in there. I think there's a washer here too. So this is facing up like that. Not that it's gonna matter. I think the starter's fried. The magnets don't look too bad. Ooh, that broke right off. Whoa, look at that in there. Jeez. Yeah, there's a bunch of pieces in there broken off. This wire's broken off. Yeah, we might need a new starter here. Yeah, it's not looking too good. Yeah, that one's broke off. Oh yeah, look at that. Not much left to these. Smells really burnt. something broke off in here too. Yeah, look at that. It's all burnt up in here. I fried the wires in there. Right there. Oh yeah, look at that. That's coming through. Yeah, we definitely fried it up. Yeah, oof. So, unfortunately, I don't think we can go any further than that. We're gonna have to get a new starter for this thing. That sucks. All right, it was 30 bucks for a new starter. We just ordered that up. It should be here tomorrow. So hopefully that will work. All right, we're back after a couple days and we finally got the starter in. So let's go ahead and install the new starter. See if the CDI is gonna work. Get our bolts in here. That one's in, bottom one, and then we can get this thing wired up. All right, brand new starter on, new CDI on. Let's see if that fixes their problem. Hopefully it does. Gas going to it. Yep. Nothing. She fired up. She's not getting any gas. Awesome. New CDI fixed it. Also new starter. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Well, hey, at least one's fixed. That is awesome. Cheap CDI fixed it. I honestly can't believe that cheap CDI off of Amazon fixed it. She's smoking a little bit though. Choke was on. Not too bad. See if she fires right back up. Yeah, I would say that one's fixed. So this cheap CDI off of Amazon was the problem all along. So it still did that sparking where it would spark when you turn the machine off and on. It still did that. So that's not an indication of a bad CDI, because this one was doing that. But I plugged this one in instead of the old one, and that solved our issue. So yeah, that was a good investment of 30 bucks for the CDI. So what we're gonna do now is rebuild this whole thing and then take it for a test drive. We've got a brand new top end kit I got for it. So you can see it was smoking pretty bad. So what we're gonna do is tear on the engine, rebuild this thing, and then take it for the first rip. Well, we're back a couple days later and we got the new cylinder and piston kit here. That came in, new gasket kit, bottom end and top end, and then new cam chain. So we are going to install the new kit, and hopefully that takes care of our smoking problem, because it's smoking a ton. And you can tell it's burning oil, it smells horrible. So what we have to do first is take off the carb, and then we can start tearing apart this head, get the cam off. And this one should be pretty easy to tear down and build back up. So pipe has to come off as well. But this one's pretty easy to work on, it looks like. As long as that head can come off without taking the engine out of the frame, we should be good to go to do the top end. So let's go ahead, get going on that, and then we can rebuild this thing and see if it still smokes. All right, get our spark plug out of here first. Yeah, you can see how black that is. Brackets here holding on the engine. pipe has to come off, so header pipe we can loosen up here. Kind of a tricky one to get to. Alright, we got one of the nuts off here. There we go. It's coming. All right, we're gonna get all the caps off. There it is. Bunch of oil down there, so that's a good sign. All right, what is next? Let's go ahead and get all the head bolts off. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. They look like they're kind of hard to get to. That one got zipped off. And the other two we can try to get. That one can't come out. Shoot, does this whole engine have to come out of the frame to get this thing off? So the long one looks like they go in the front here. Can this one come out? Yep. That one came out. These have crush washers on them. So the longer one went over here on this side. Let's see if we can get the other one out. Doesn't look like it. All right, those are not coming out. There's a couple Allens on the side here holding the head on. Let's get those off, and then we can try to get the head off and maneuver these so we can get these bolts out of here. All right, these are what those Allen bolts look like from the side. There's just two of them holding that on. It's one good whack. It should pop off of here. Let's see, is the head separated? Come on. We've got the cam sprocket we need to get off as well. Let's do that. All right, so cam sprocket we can zip out of there. Now there's a washer on that as well. You can see here. All right, cam chain tensioner. Get that out. I like to first loosen up the bolt here. Get it off, I'm gonna have to reassemble it. Oh man, down there. Sometimes those are really tight. There, just crack that free. Pull that right out here. Tensioner was pretty far out. Oh. Just like that. So for timing, when we reinstall it, you want this line to line up with the arrow right here when at top dead center. So, all right, now we should be able to loosen up this head here and hopefully maneuver it so we can get these bolts out of here. Off. So when we reinstall it, we're going to have to keep in mind that those have to go on first when taking the head off. Otherwise, you won't be able to get back on. Alright, that one's off as well. Cam chain guide. Alright. Head is out. Alright, taking a look at the cylinder here, I can see the cross hatches. There's a ton of carbon on the piston. We'll take a closer look once I can get the camera in there. So you can definitely tell it's been smoking a lot. Here's the guide. Guide looks good. Alright, so there's an Allen bolt that needs to come out right here. Let's try to get that out without stripping it. These always like to strip out. Okay. Ooh, base gasket was all ripped. I don't even think I did that. That was just ripped from before. Really rough condition. Huh. Jeez. Let's see why this thing was smoking. Rings are all free, but look at the blow-by on the rings. Oh. Look at that, it's all blow-by. So obviously the rings were not seating to the cylinder. I'm guessing those are really, really worn down. So let's get the piston off next and then we can take a closer look and measure the ring gap and see what was going on, why this thing was smoking so much. You can see the underside of the piston is all black. Tons of carbon at the top. Not looking too good. We'll check out the rod next. Let's see what the rod feels like. It's a Hot Rods crank in there. Huh. So it looks like probably a new crank. Yeah, crank feels really good. No up and down play at all. Just a little side to side. That feels really good. The cam chain actually feels really good too. Here's the play in the rod. Barely any side to side, like I said before. And then absolutely zero up and down. Looks really, really good in there. Alright, here's the piston. Here's the pin. The pin got really hot, it looks like. I was really stuck in the piston too. So let's take a peek and see what these rings look like here. See if they were installed correctly. Alright, top ring. Usually you're going to see like a number or a letter at the top. And I'm not seeing anything. I think it's worn off of this one. Yeah, I don't see any numbers or letters at the top. Or the bottom. Sometimes it has a tapered edge too. It doesn't look like this one has one. Alright, so can't tell if the rings were installed correctly or not. Let's see about the second ring here. Ooh, that one broke like instantly. That was installed correctly though. You can see the N right there. So that was facing up. That ring was really brittle. That just broke like instantly. It's a good thing we tore this thing down before the rings just gave out. And the oil rings coming off. Alright, yeah, everything looks pretty worn down. Let's take a look at the cylinder next and then we'll measure that ring gap. We've got head gasket. And then we've got our pin here. It's got that little collar on it. Alright, that looks good. Any pins on the bottom here. The gasket, the base gasket looked horrible. It's like basically melting away. It's really bad. Did have the O-ring installed here. And then it's got our pin here. Take that out. Alright, that was incorrectly. Alright, let's see what the piston feels like in here. Not too bad. Let's check the ring gap. We can check it with one ring. Actually, it wasn't that bad. We'll measure it, but it really doesn't look horrible. Okay, bigger than that. Let's see. We'll go right to 16 thousandths of an inch. Oh, it's a little bit bigger than that. So it's a little bit worn out. Yep, 21 thousandths of an inch is what that ring gap is at. So this fits in there. This ring gap was a little bit worn out, but not horrible. I've seen them over 100 thousandths of an inch, you know. It would smoke a ton, but you know, this one was smoking a lot. You can see some blow by here too. Almost like the head gasket was blown right there, see that? So cylinder, let's just wipe this out and take a peek. Doesn't look horrible. You can still see the cross hatches on here. It almost looks like somebody recently honed this. But we have a brand new cylinder to use, so we're not even gonna really inspect it too much. All right, taking a look at the head next. The valves are pretty carboned up. but that's to be expected, especially when you have a machine that smokes as much as it did. It's just burning off all that oil constantly. So you're gonna see a lot of carbon like that. Let's get this pin out. That pulled right out. So we'll clean this area up. We have to install new valve seals as well. So we can do that. So to install the valve seals, we're gonna have to take off the cam sprocket here. And then there's a retainer piece right there. And then you can see the little shafts right there and right there. Those have threaded inserts, and what we're gonna do is thread into those and then use a slide hammer, pull those out, and our rocker should come out then, where we can get our valves out and replace those valve seals. So that's kind of the process there, but head looks good, surface looks good here. So just a little bit of cleanup work and we should be fine. Bolts out, these retain the pin there and the bearing here for the cam. We'll Loctite those in when we reinstall it. Got two little retainers here like that. Like that. Let's get this little piece here. So one end goes into the slide hammer, the thicker end, like that. And then the skinnier end goes into the shafts. So just twist those in, and it has a spot for a screwdriver bit to twist those in. I'll make sure we twist them in enough so we don't strip them out. Our slide hammer goes onto that. Just pull those out. Just like that. You can see those have an O-ring there. We'll check and make sure those are good. You can actually get, I think, that rocker out of here. A little retainer clip there as well. We have to remember to put in. Just in case, the exact same, just with an eye, like that. So that's going to be the intake. One in. Hopefully I can screw this one out. Ooh, this one's a little tight. See if we can do it. There we go. Wasn't on there too tight. Sometimes those can be really difficult to get out. These were pretty easy. And check that O-ring again. Alright, then the exhaust rocker coming out. And that has a retainer clip on that side. A little spring clip. Ooh, a hot cam's in there. Wow, so this was rebuilt. New hot cams. That's crazy. So it's got a new crank in it, a hot cams. Wow. Not expecting that. So we're gonna need our spring compressor. What we're gonna do is compress these springs, take off the springs, clean up the valves, and the valve seals are sitting right underneath the spring. Probably gonna go flying. Finally budged free here. Man, those keepers were really stuck to the valve. Those are some beefy springs. So it's doubled up. There's the keeper. Get the valve out. Man, those are some thick valves too. Look at how thick those are. Wow. So we're just gonna clean these up on a wire wheel. Get that carbon off on the top and the sides. Right down in there, you can see the valve seal right there. So that's what we're after. Little tap, and those keepers came free. Man, they were on there tight. Let's see what the intake valve looks like here. I'm curious to see what those valve seals look like too. See if they're really worn out. Springs coming out. Actually looks pretty decent. I believe both of these are steel. So intake valve is steel. Let's see if the exhaust valve is, because then we can lap them in too. Nope, exhaust valve cannot be lapped. It's not a steel valve. It's coated with something. And you don't want to take off that coating, it's a protective coating. Just take that coating off, it'll wear down the valve a lot quicker. So we can lap in the intake, not the exhaust. And that's what the seats look like. So we'll clean up all the seat area, get that all looking nice and clean. All right, try to get the valve seals out of here. There's one. All right, we've got this plastic tool here. This will take off all the carbon and imperfections here. That looks a lot better. All right, a little valve grinding compound going on the intake valve here. Get your valve pushed in. By the way, we just cleaned that up on the wire wheel. Looking good. I couldn't get the carbon off in the center. That's really on there. But the rest of it's really clean. Looks good. All right, brand new valve seals going on here. A little oil on them. Push those in place. Valves are back in, we're putting the rockers back on. And to get the little pins back in, I just take a piece of brass and just pound them back in until they bottom out. Right about there. And they should go in pretty easily. You can see. So we've got that retainer clip in there. That looks good. Now we can get the other one on. So other rocker going on here. We'll bottom out. Right there. And the bolt for the head that goes through here holds that pin in. See, it goes right there and then crosses over that pin. So that pin has to be pushed in far enough for that bolt to go through. All right, here is the kit. Got our rings. We've got the piston and the cylinder in here. Alright, little clips. Got your pin here. Here's the piston. And here is the cylinder. Cross hatches look pretty nice. I like to take my fingers and just kind of go through it here and see if there are any imperfections in the cylinder. Not feeling anything. A lot of times these cheaper cylinders can have burrs. But yeah, cross hatches look really good on there. Okay. See what the piston feels like in there. Feels good. Alright, let's take a look at the rings and we'll measure the ring gap. See what we're dealing with here. Alright. So we've got our oil rings here. Put those off to the side. We have our top ring here. You can see. Is this one marked? That one is not marked. So maybe the top ring is not marked. And then the bottom ring, the second ring I should say, is marked with an R. The R is going to be facing up when you install it onto the piston. So, yeah, this one is not marked at all. So it must be able to go on either way. Alright, let's measure the ring gap. Let's see what we get. Oh yeah, that looks pretty darn good. That's pretty small. I mean, it's less than 12. We'll look up the specs and see what it's supposed to be, but usually it's supposed to be between 12 and 14. So ring gap might be a little tight. Yeah, it stays about 10. I think we're going to trim that until it's about 12 thousandths of an inch. So that ring gap is a little bit small for my liking. Let's go ahead and install the second ring. See what that ring gap is at. Ooh, that one's really tiny too. That one's at probably 10 as well. Ooh, even tighter. That one's got to be at like 9 or 8. That one's at 8. So we're going to take a little bit off of both rings. All right, so second ring, you can see we shaved down just a hair and took a little bit of sandpaper to get off the burrs after sanding it. And now this one is set to 13 thousandths of an inch. It's perfect at 13, both on the top and the bottom of the cylinder. So that ring is perfect. Then the top ring, this one's 12.5 thousandths of an inch. So right between 12 and 13. I didn't want to go too big with it. So as you can see, the 12 fits right in there. So we should be perfect now. Those rings were pretty tight before. So good thing we checked them and were able to shave them down a little bit. Otherwise that probably would have locked up the first ride. All right, we got the oil rings installed. You can see one ring gap right there. And one is right there. So they are staggered. We'll put the second ring on with the R. You can see the R right there, facing up. Going to install that next. And then your other ring, the first ring, believe can be installed either way. There's no marking on it. All right, now we're going to stagger these. So this one, top ring, is going to go towards the front. This one's going to go towards the back, the ring gap, and then you've got your oil rings gap are staggered. All right, lube up all the rings here. And the piston. Get our pin oiled up here. I like to oil up the cylinder. Get that all oiled up. All right, we went ahead and cleaned off the surface here. We're gonna put a little gasket maker down. All right, little O-ring went around that collar there. Now we can get the gasket on. Just started here, arrow towards the front of the machine. All right, cylinders going on next. Cylinder on. Now there's a little O-ring collar here on the pin. It's going to go in right there. All right, torque specs for the head bolts are 29 foot-pounds. Let's get those torqued down. It's hard to get in there. Crisscross pattern here. Tapped at center so we can time this thing up. All right, looking down here, you can see the T the line. And coming up here, we want the valve clearance to be visible. So on the intake and the exhaust, you can hear them clicking. So those are open. So now we're at top dead center, we can time this thing up. So we want to keep it right at top dead center. And we might have to take a couple shots at this to see if we can get her to go. Pretty much spot on right there. Can move that cam a little bit too. Right there, it's perfect. Line is lined up with the arrow. All right, tensioner going back in here. Get. And our spring going in. Oop. All right, valve clearance specs are going to be 4 thousandths for the intake right here, and then 7 thousandths for the exhaust. Let's see what we're at. It's pretty good. I think you can go up to 6 on the intake as well. So let's see what 6 feels like in there. Yeah, this could be a little bit smaller. I'm gonna set it to 5 because it's got the hot cams. Right there is pretty good. Perfect at 5. And the exhaust is supposed to be at 7. That was a little bit tight actually. Perfect. All right, exhaust is set to 7, intake is set to 5 thousandths. Well, this thing is completely back together. Brand new cylinder, brand new piston, valves are adjusted, car's back on, gas tank's back on, got a new air filter in there. So let's go ahead and see if this thing fires up. All right, she's on. Let's give it a go. We are going to be breaking this thing in, so we're going to be revving it out a little bit. So blipping the throttle to seat those rings. And then once this thing fires up, we'll let it cool down for 5 minutes, start it back up, repeat the process, and then take it for the first ride after that, hopefully. This is if it starts, we'll see. Here we go, choke it, gas on. Nothing happening here. Fired up, that's a good sign. We're just gonna be whooping the throttle now, try to seat those rings. broke it all yet. That is awesome. So far, so good. Looking really good. Alright, we'll shut this thing off. And we'll let it cool down for about 5 minutes. Until this engine is cold to the touch. We'll come back, fire it up, continuously blip the throttle, and then we'll be ready for the first ride. All right, she's pretty cooled down. We let it sit for about 5-10 minutes. Let's see if she fires right back up. Well, fired right back up, revs out good, so I'd say we're good to go. We are going to put all the plastics back on. I got a new seat cover for it, so we can put that on, and then we can take it for the first ride. All right, battery going in. All right, starting to look like a quad again here. The seat cover has seen better days, as you can see. Kind of wrecks the whole look of it. So we ended up getting a brand new one here. Got a little dust on her. So let's get the new cover on. That should look a lot better. All hardened up, really, really rough. All right, here is the finished quad. New seat looking nice on there. So I believe that's everything that needs to be fixed on this thing. So plastics are all on, batteries in, oil's been changed out. Yeah, looks really nice. So let's do one more start and then we'll go break this thing in at the land. Take it for a little rip, see what happens. We have to see if the reverse works as well. All right, let's see if she starts up with the battery here. Choke it. I am completely shocked at how good this thing runs. It is peppy for a 350. Holy cow, does this thing have some power. I think the rejetting of the carb, the pipe, and the cam really add a ton of power to this thing. I mean, you can do donuts all day long. I mean, it's just throwing dirt. It is crazy torquey for a 350. I'm just completely surprised. I was really not expecting that power from a 350, but man, this thing rips pretty good. Not a single issue with it. Both brakes work, all the gears work, reverse works. So I'm really happy we ended up rebuilding the top end. No smoke at all. Fires right up instantly. Turn this thing on, even in 29-degree weather here. Instant. Like I said, no smoke at all after the break-in. I mean, she is good to go. Check this out, just instant. So this thing is running perfectly. All it took to get this thing running right was a $30 CDI from Amazon. Well, this one survived. The first break-in, the cold, and it ran perfectly. So this one is all good to go. We're able to replace the CDI, the starter, and then we rebuilt the whole top end. And yeah, now it doesn't smoke. So this one's all wrapped up. I hope you guys enjoyed the video on this one. Picking it up for 500 bucks, diagnosing it, ordering up all the parts, putting all the parts on, figuring out the problem, and tearing it all back down, rebuilding it back up, doing the first start and the first run. This one was definitely enjoyable to do. This one was really not too bad to work on, actually. I think it took me probably 6 hours to film and do the top end, and then the parts were like maybe a couple $100 for the top end, the CDI, and the starter. So not horrible. Now this quad's probably worth right around $1,500 to $2,000. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for the next video. And until next time, we are out.